Howdy y'all, welcome back to Rat's Nest Hot Rods. Here's that Speedo gauge cluster kit out of the 66 AMC Rambler. Pretty bizarre. Take a look there. You can see kind of the copper tape running between all those little lamps in the back there. And I'll give you another look here with the lamp holders out of the way. You can see the copper kind of rings around each hole, and that's how you get your ground and your negative at the individual lamps. This is some kind of capacitor relay that sends the power to the alternator light to show you're not charging, and then also helps out with the temperature gauge in the cluster. I'm going to start running through and doing the continuity test. The meter I use is Enova. I'm not sure what the catalog number was, but it's middle of the line, I think. Works good. Picked it up off Amazon. So we're looking to test out which pin from that circular pin acceptor on the back of that board goes to which light, so that I can kind of make sense of it. I have some diagrams that I'll pull up here in a minute and try and figure that out. Basically what this shows you is when there's continuity, that means you can pass electricity from one end to the other, and you're on the same wire or piece of tape in this matter. So when the meter says 0 or something close to that, you got continuity. When it says oh well, you got it open. Alright, I'm going to speed this up. We're going to get to adding a ground to a rear turn signal and brake light that was kind of sketchy. So we'll kind of fly through that. I'll stop in parts, and then we're going to take this thing all the way up through the dash wiring, start the GAR, test some things, test some lights, rewire some things, and get to the steering column, which is kind of the final part of the puzzle to electrical wiring in my estimation, because you want to get all that work done under the dash without a steering wheel in your way, trust me. Alright guys, I'll get it out of the way.
Happening all at the same time. The miracle instant, the thin minute, the ugly, the sublime.
Alright, feeling pretty good about that gauge cluster, and we'll see that here in the near future. I did cut out a few retakes of getting that gauge cluster in the dash. It's kind of nuts. Got to go in through the glove box and work it across. From the factory, they put a window seal over the top of it, and Ray did not want to pull his windshield, so he made me do it the hard way, but that's the kind of guy he is. I'm going to work on this taillight assembly, and basically what I'm going to do is tap on two sides of that socket that you see there in the middle, and then I'm going to lay a plate over the top of them, cut a circle out that's going to go right over the top of that socket, and pin that thing in place, because it did not accept the universal style bulb holders into the fixtures very well. That was creating a bad ground. That was our issue throughout the car, is at some point in its life it had those replaced because the originals rusted out, and then when you put these in, they didn't seat very well. They're kind of sprung to hold in place. So if you look to the left of the light and up above the channel locks and the soldering iron, that rectangular piece of metal is what I'm going to do to kind of strap that bulb socket into place. I'll lay that right over the top, and then I've got it tapped out so that I can screw into the fixture itself with some pretty short screws, and then I get a good ground. So I'll go through this routine here. I'll speed it up, and you'll see eventually we'll get to putting a ground strap on there that I'll be able to tie to the frame or the chassis or the body.
When I'm troubled, when I'm crazy, insane, you got no good reason, so why should you complain? It's the people with the cash in the cafe. who are smiling out the window and cutting at their steaks. Always the little crack in the back of my soul, which you can only be seen on X-ray, 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 X-ray. Or is it the night that makes you want to escape? Or is it the night that makes you wanna run away? Get down now. Somewhere up in heaven, someplace down the block, someone is biting into an apple, someone is opening a box, someone is watching me try to pick up all these pieces again to try to put back up this house of...
All right, let me slow it down. We're just going to do a final test here, make sure I've already tested the ground. So we're going to test the brake light and the turn signal light. One's going to be brighter than the other. You want those brake lights to be super bright. So we'll run through this test. I'm going to do a little modification to the front light fixtures, your front turn signals, parking lights, signal lights, whatever. And then we'll jump back into the dash and start getting things ready there.
Again, is it the river of blood that washes away all the evidence that the plague ever came? Or is it the father of your lover who tells his daughter that by your side she will never be safe? Or is it the night that makes...
Back on the gauge cluster we go. Wanted to do some final checking then, make sure each pin was going to the socket that I was going to. We're going to run through this real quick. Put kind of a pigtail, or use the original connector to make a pigtail kind of flower arrangement, for lack of better words here. And then Ray and I went and labeled each wire, then cross-checked that with the factory manual, and it's pretty close. So I'll speed this up, but that's what's going on here. Put the wire on, ring it out, use the lawnmower battery, make sure the light comes on, move to the next one.
Escape. What is it the night that makes you wanna run away? Get down now.
Alright, we're going to do some soldering in the dash. These are the wires that are connect to the gauge cluster. And what I found would work was that, I found many things that wouldn't work. I should start by that. But that pin size on the back of that gauge cluster was really hard to find. And the thing that I did find that worked really good was Molex connectors, M-O-L-E-X. And so I bought some of those. However, due to the size of the wire, I couldn't use the crimper on it, so I just soldered them on there. So basically the diameter of the pin worked really good in the Molex connector that I had, but the gauge of the wire didn't fit, or fits good, but you couldn't get any crimp on it from the Molex. So soldered them in. Then I'll cut the pigtails. You'll see I'll make another beautiful flower arrangement of wires, and then we'll slide it in. One mistake that I made here that I didn't show was since I soldered all these on there, I thought for some reason I'd be able to get the pins on the back of the gauge cluster inside the dash. Not thinking too far ahead on that one, I quickly realized that there is no way I'm going to get these pins landed, let alone on the right pin, if I do get any of them to stick. So you'll see that we'll solder these Molex connectors, then we're going to end up cutting every one of those wires and then putting quick disconnects on them so that I could wire it in place. Just a little tip. I had the dash bent out, probably did do the assembly at the factory. I could have made that work straight into the harness, but sometimes you got to make adjustments.
Make you stop, might make you wonder if something is defective with number 1129. We checked in last December and back then everything was fine. Is it the wake or break a day that makes you, or is it the make or break of the insane ballet that takes you, or is it the locust of the strip mall come back again to mold you out of their clay, or is it the night that makes you want to stay? Or is it the night that makes you want to run away? Get out,
The sweet, cool prince of the cold countryside, and to the supernova of a truck stop. In a green Nova he rides with a sleepless young beauty right by his side. The silver hell of the moon is well inside the bowling alley bar alone, lights up the night. It's a low-life freak, $10,000 in my hole. I don't like freak with his.
All right, we're cutting back in where we start building this little flower. There's the original pins there, and with them all labeled out. So I'm going to keep that around, and then you'll see that I've got the new bouquet of wires ready to go. There's the pins, and what I'll end up doing here is a little bit of soldering action around those pins that felt a little bit loose. I'm not sure what the person used before me, but it was like a I don't know, JB Weld or super glue, CA glue, something like that. So we're gonna get these all landed on here. You can see the quick disconnects are on there, and then we'll get back in the car and get it finally wired in.
His girl can't understand the word she chose. She's got a little bit of coke and a little bit of sweet, a little blood in her spokes. She would be his trophy, wasn't go out and take it.
sing my song right now about how I was destroyed, how we rode through the night with our bodies drained of joy. Don't you know America?
All right, back under the dash. We've made the final connections for the gauge cluster, as you saw. There's the quick disconnects on the ends of those wires. I made the pigtails about 12 inches long, and that allowed me to usher that thing through the dashboard from the glove box side all the way across, and then make the final connections. Now we're going to do a little bit of tidying up here, because the steering wheel column is next to go in, and you want to try and get things up and out of the way as best as possible. Also, if you need some grounds for different relays or things like that. I know on the LED style flashers that I had to put in to make all the lights work, they require you to ground the relay, so keep an eye out for that. So I just pick a spot up under there and land all of the negative wires to ground right in one location, so you can always look there and see if you have a ground problem. They're not spread out all over the car. So I'll speed this up, and then we'll come back at you when the steering column starts to go in.
Young, whether with a needle or with a gun, the promise of some crazy dream that never can be won. We are rotting in the fields and we're rotting in the streets. With this truth we understand that we're living in a land that has stolen everything. We are so young and weary. I wanna sing my song right now about bodies that are transformed, how a man becomes someone else, how he gets lost in the storm. Now I sing the songs of the enemy.
Steering linkage, anyone? Straight rod from the steering gear all the way up through the steering column. Manual steering, and it was a direct shot. Pretty incredible engineering to make that work out straight, maybe, except when it goes through your chest, or if you're a short person, through your neck in the event of a front-end collision. Yeah, interesting. Anyway, we're going to get to the steering column, the wiring, and get Ray's Rusty Rambler on out of here in the next episode. Thanks for watching. Appreciate the likes. And the subscriptions are awesome. We're slowly inching up about 5 subscriptions a week, and I'll take that. It's pretty cool. That's not what I'm in it here for. Hopefully people are learning something from the videos, and a lot of the guys that make the comments, I watch the videos on their channels too, and it's really awesome to be part of this community. All right, only one thing left to say. Peace and grease, sucker.